panel will release their decision, but that's not final.
Now, if the panel recommends parole, the decision will then be reviewed by the state parole board. Now, if they approve, the matter then goes to Governor Newsom.
NBC4's Robert Kovacic joins us now live from Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego, where the brothers are currently being held. Robert.
Good morning, Adrian. Good morning, Lynette. Good morning, everybody. We got a lot to cover here, so if you have any questions, just let me know. But what we are looking at this point is a hearing is underway, and you consider just how far that we have come now. If you go back, it was 36 years ago last night on North Elm Drive in Beverly Hills when Lyle and Eric Menendez walked in and then were responsible for the shotgun murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. As you mentioned, they were tried together twice. They were convicted. They were put in separate prison facilities initially and now are together here at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility deep in San Diego. We're actually just a few minutes from the Mexico border. Now, when I spoke with Lyle Menendez in 2017, and we asked him, do you ever consider the possibility of one day walking out of prison? And I'm quoting here, he said it was too torturous a thought. But he said, I'm never giving up hope. And hope they never gave up. According to their attorney, Mark Garagos, their high-powered defense attorney, telling NBC4 that their remarkable transformation in prison is something that books should be written about. He said, keep in mind that these brothers were convicted of life in prison without the possibility of parole, meaning that they had nothing to look forward to. However, he said they got their degrees and they have gone on to do incredible work. However, the district attorney of LA County, Nathan Hochman, who we have spoken with, said it is not time yet for the brothers to be granted parole. He said because they don't have, and I'm quoting here, true insight into their crimes, not really taking responsibility for every lie that they told after and before the murders of their parents. Now, when it comes to the sexual abuse angle, that has been the topic of numerous documentaries, as well as that Netflix series that came out last year, nominated for Emmys next month. Hochman's belief is that that is not any reason to kill your parents. He said even if that sexual abuse inside of that home took place, he said it doesn't mean you go ahead and kill your parents. And he said that doesn't constitute the self-defense excuse that the brothers were looking at. So when they go in today, Adrian and Lynette, what we are looking at right now is basically two separate parole hearings. Interesting because, as you mentioned, this is the first time they will be judged separately. They will have what is called a conversation with two parole commissioners. The brothers will be here in San Diego. The parole commissioners will be in Los Angeles, and it will be remote. And then prosecutors as well as defense attorneys will be able to make short statements, again, remotely, as well as family members. Now, what's interesting about family members are usually the victim's family members that come forward. Normally, they say, don't let these guys out of prison. But these are family members who are not only relatives of the victims, they're relatives of the defendants, and all of them will come forward and ask for Lyle and Eric Menendez, now pushing 60, to be released. However, the one Menendez family member that did not believe that the brothers should be released, that believed that initially and throughout these many decades that their motive for killing their parents was a multi-million-dollar inheritance, that man, Kitty Menendez's brother, has since died just a few months ago. But again, that will all be remote. So you mentioned it's about 2 and 3 hours. That's what we're thinking. It could be longer given that we have family statements to consider here. Then the parole commissioners will sit back and they will meet. Usually their meeting is not very long. And then they will come forward with a recommendation for parole or not for parole. Now, as I'm going to put back in my earpiece because we're having a little trouble here talking to you guys, and we'll bring you in. I do want to give you sort of this caveat. There was a family statement that came out yesterday that said that they were cautiously optimistic. And the reason why they say they're cautiously optimistic is that they understand the rigorous challenges of the California parole process. Adrian and Lynette, when California inmates go for parole the very first time, in 2013, only 1% were granted parole. In 2022, only 74% of first-timers were granted parole. So the Menendez brothers have a big mountain to climb if they want to seek freedom their first time out. And honestly, one of the things that Nathan Hochman brings up over and over again is that they have prison violations, right? Cell phones, tobacco, drugs, tax fraud, and I'm lumping them together. These are not individually, each brothers have different violations, but those will also be considered. However, together, that the independent analysis has said that if they do get released, they pose a moderate level of risk, and that has since been raised from a lower level of risk. All of those things to be considered as this parole hearing underway. Here behind me, keep in mind, Eric Menendez talking to those parole commissioners, but doing so remotely.
So many twists and turns, Robert, in this case. We'll be watching and have the very latest from you throughout the day. Thank you for that live report.
You're welcome.
Eric, I know that they would be proud of us.
The Menendez brothers' chance at freedom may be credited in part to renewed public interest in the case, fueled by documentaries like this one on Netflix.
And a whole lot of attention on social media as well. NBC4's Ted Chen has more on Hollywood's impact on this case.
This series, it really did influence the case.
And I was always going to choose.
This series, it really did influence the case.
And I was always going to choose my brother over my parents.
Art and life blurred in unprecedented ways in the case of Lyle and Eric Menendez, so much so that as Variety's Mark Malkin was speaking with actor Cooper Koch about his Emmy nomination for playing Eric in the Netflix series Monsters, Lyle called Koch from prison to congratulate him.
It was so crazy. I'm on the phone with Cooper and he's like, "Oh, I think I'm getting a call from the prison. I should take that, right?" I said, "Yes, go take it."
The show earned 11 Emmy nominations, including for Koch and for actors Javier Bardem and Chloe Sevigny, who played the Menendez parents, Jose and Kitty.
Everyone asks why we kill our parents. Maybe now people can understand the truth.
There was also a Netflix documentary which featured interviews with the Menendez brothers, and a Peacock documentary which included accusations that Jose not only abused his sons, but also a member of the boy band Menudo. And even before that, a Law and Order true crime series.
We watched the Netflix documentary, the 10-part series, and the 2-hour one they just dropped.
Experts say all of it helped generate a movement. Viewers visiting the former Menendez home in Beverly Hills, and a wave of support pouring out for the Menendez brothers on social media. Kim Kardashian took up the cause and posted, quote, "It's time for the Menendez brothers to be freed."
Ryan Murphy and Kim Kardashian are friends. Ryan gave Kim an early look at the series. And from there, she was like, "You know what? I think I want to do something. I want to get involved. I want to meet the brothers."
Former LA County District Attorney George Gascon acknowledged to NBC News last year his office got a flood of questions about the case.
Hollywood isn't supposed to drive court cases, but with 110 million people watching the Netflix shows, it puts a topic on the radar screen of judges and lawyers, jurors, and voters.
Within a year, the case was back in court. Eric and Lyle were resentenced to life with the possibility of parole, and a parole board and Governor Newsom now standing between them and freedom.
One intriguing question is whether the deciders, the members of the parole board, have been exposed to a lot of Menendez shows.
These projects really brought the Menendez brothers and the crime and the trial and everything that went along with it back into the public view.
Freed or not, the Menendez brothers and Hollywood have proven inseparable. Ted Chen, NBC4 News.
All right, so I saw Royal Oaks in Ted's piece there. He joins us now, legal analyst covering the Menendez case for decades. So you're joining us to talk to us through this process, how we got here, how these hearings are going to work, the timeline for what happens next. We heard from Robert just a short time. There is so much to get through here. Where would you like to start?
Robert identified the nuclear core of this case, and that is risk of violent crime if they are released. They have been labeled as a moderate risk of that. Lyle supposedly is a narcissist, according to the shrinks, and Eric is vulnerable and does what other people tell him to do. Now, you may say to yourself, well, gee, why did they get resentenced in May? Because the judge at that time said, I don't see a strong argument for a chance of violence. it's a different standard. If you're running a race with hurdles and there's a 1-foot hurdle, that's what they overcame in May because the judge said they're not going to murder anybody. But now the hurdle is different. It's a 3-foot hurdle to jump over because now the parole board is asking themselves, will they commit any violent crime? And if you're labeled a moderate risk of that, vast majority of people are turned down. That's why they're pessimistic in a sense. On the other hand, this is the Menendez case with the mountain of evidence about abuse, huge public interest in it. So their chances are better than the typical person at a moderate level, but still, this could be an uphill fight.
So D.A. Hochman has made a big deal about the brothers taking responsibility for this. And until they do that, he doesn't think they deserve to be paroled. Do you think that they've heard him say that over and over again, and this time around they might be a little different in terms of taking responsibility? Sure,
their lawyers are going to tell them, this is what Hochman's saying, you got to convince this board that you know you did the wrong thing. The key here is self-defense. When they had those shotguns and they barged into the den while their parents were eating ice cream and watching TV and killed them, they claimed initially, well, it was self-defense. We thought Dad that day was going to kill us. But nobody really believed that. I mean, they bought the shotguns days and days before that. And so now Hochman is saying, you know, they've been lying for decades, but they can try to undo that by saying to the board, you know, we get what D.A. Hochman is saying. We have been lying. We were ashamed of the abuse. We are different and better people.
So you dug into the numbers. You said that they would have an uphill climb here. Percentage-wise, what are we talking about?
1 out of 5 people who have been labeled moderate risks are actually given parole. So generally, you're not going to get out. Then 1 out of 5 of the people who were told by the parole, okay, even though you're moderate, we're letting you out. 1 of 5 of those get out because the governor, 4 times out of 5, says, no, not on my watch. Will Gavin Newsom keep them in prison? Maybe because of political sensitivity. He's thinking about the 2028 presidential race. Cynics would say that. Who knows what's in his heart?
Can you talk a little bit about exactly what will happen today? So there are separate hearings. Eric's today, Lyle's tomorrow, and everybody's in a different spot. It's all remote. How does this work?
The parole board hearings begin with the commissioners saying, okay, this is what we're here for. Then they say, we want to question Eric, and they question him for about 90 minutes. Why did you commit the crimes? How have you changed? What are your plans? How can you convince us you're not going to commit violent crimes if you leave? And then the next step is the district attorney for about 10 minutes says, keep them behind bars. Then the victims' families will say, let them out, you know, we'll support them. And finally, the defense lawyers, not Mark Garagos, but his colleagues, will make the pitch to release them from prison.
So let's say the board members say, you know what, we're going to grant you parole. That doesn't mean they walk out of prison today.
Right, that's just the first step.
So then the bosses in the parole board listen to the 2-person recommendation, and within 120 days, the full parole board has to say, yeah, we're going to go along with this or not. And then after that, the governor has a month to decide whether to veto that or not. So this is a marathon, not a sprint, but we could get within a few hours the decision of this parole board as to Eric's future.
So it could be up to 120 days, but not necessarily.
Right. They could do it in a week or a month, but they have 120 days to decide.
Well, closer to the finish line than we've ever been.
Exactly.
Wow, interesting. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Right, well, you can track today's proceedings and get breaking updates on our NBCLA app. And to dig deeper in this case and the brothers' quest to be released from prison for their freedom, you can go to our website, NBCLA.com, click on the Menendez Brothers tab on the trending bar at the top of the homepage.
And we, of course, we will be following this hearing all day long. We will bring you an update as soon as a decision comes down.